such a dramatic ending to Shabbat. I had this whole, rarely do I really prepare super ahead of time for the fellowship, but I had an idea I wanted to share that I was really excited about that I actually scripted. And the moment Shabbat ended, and there's always the guy that immediately after Shabbat turns on his phone, checks his phone to see what happens. Well, he rushed into the synagogue and said, "You wouldn't believe what just happened. Four Chatufim, four of the hostages were released." And we were all like, "What?" And he said, "Alive! They're alive! They're alive and well." And like tears rushed into my eyes. People were just, it was so overwhelming. All of you heard about it. I'm sure nobody's tuning into this fellowship and they're like, "What? What say you?" You know, it's like, you've heard it. It was a miraculous, historic, blockbuster film worthy hostage rescue operation. This past, Shabbat, Israel brought back 4 hostages back home from the depths of Hamas captivity. We can only imagine what their life was like. And according to all accounts, it was a next level operation with dozens, if not hundreds, of terrorists opening fire with RPGs, anti-tank missiles, machine guns, and much more. And in Israel, today is just a day of tremendous joy for everyone. Here's a video, some of you may have seen it, a lifeguard making the announcement to a packed beach in Tel Aviv, which erupted with tremendous joy.
אנחנו יכולים גם לספר שנועה נדרשה כבר עם אביה שנזכה לבשורות טובות נוספות. עם ישראל חי. צריכים ונרגשים לבשר לכם כי 4 חטופים חולצו בשלום ובחיים משבי החמאס בעזה. החטופים הם נועה ארגמני, שלומי זיו, אלמוג מאיר.
It's a montage. There's videos, non-stop videos of all of this stuff, and I should have really subtitled it, but he said, "These hostages have been released, Am Yisrael Chai," and they're all exploding. And it's not only in Israel, this is what the street of the Jewish neighborhood in Melbourne, Australia looks like. Which made me happy, not only to see them celebrating and sharing in the elation and the joy that we have here in Israel, but also because I'm starting to get this feeling that more and more Jews in the exile just don't have the wherewithal, the courage so much to go out into the streets and celebrate with Israeli flags. So I'm so happy to see that I'm wrong on that front. And there still are Jewish communities. Hopefully there are many that really are going out like that. Someone actually
Ari,
sent me
point out, by the way, as I'm watching all of these different videos, there are so many videos of Gazans, Hamas people just celebrating 9/11, celebrating the death and the destruction and the killing and the murder. And then you see the natural responses. People are so happy and just celebrating life.
Someone sent me this juxtaposition, Jeremy, of 2 simultaneous videos. One says, "Jews celebration when hostages are released." And then it says, jihadist celebration when hostages are taken, just to contrast those 2 things.
Exactly.
But I couldn't put all the videos in. But I wanted to include this because this little hetek, this little note that was posted in an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, it really touched my heart. It's clearly written by someone who doesn't yet keep the stringent laws of the Sabbath, who just couldn't tolerate the thought of their Orthodox brethren needing to wait till the end of Sabbath to hear the incredible news. And it says here on this little petek hung on the walls of the ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, it says, "To my sweet Sabbath observant friends, I have no idea if you have heard the news, but 4 hostages have been returned live and well. Shlomi Ziv, Almog Meir, Noah Argamani, and Andrei Kozel." It says their names. "And with God's help, the other 120 will be returned." There's no judgment there, no negativity, just Jews sharing their gratitude and joy to the creator of heaven and the earth, celebrating together across all spectrums for this great salvation and this kindness. And it really brought the country together in a way that I really feel like we really needed this right now. We needed this victory. We needed this celebration. We needed this salvation, of course, in the eyes of most of the world, everyone killed on their side, in Gaza. It doesn't matter what they were doing. And during this operation, if they were killed, they were innocent civilians. It doesn't matter who they are or what they've done. Someone actually sent me this funny slide from the Babylon Bee, if you've heard of it. They're like sort of like a comedy site. And I wanted to share it with you because, things are so absolutely crazy that you got to laugh. So what does it say? It says, Gaza has the largest transgender community in the Middle East with as many as 15,000 men identifying as women and children. But it's funny because it's true. I mean, if there's a 17-year-old elite Hamas terrorist killing machine, well, he's 17. That makes him a child. He's counted as a child. Women and children. He's one of the children for real. Here's what the headline on the CNN said. As one of the interviews were happening, it said Gantz postponed news conference after the hostage release. Release. Yes, it really called it the hostage release, as if Hamas just had, conscience pains, and they couldn't hold on to them any longer. So they sent them home with roses, Toblerone chocolates, and an apology letter. I mean, it's so outrageous because everything is out in the open. I mean, Noah Argamani was held hostage in the home of Abdallah al-Jamal, a photojournalist and writer for Al Jazeera and the Palestine Post. A journalist. If he was killed, the person actually holding captive hostages in his home, it would have been an innocent civilian for sure. A journalist that was killed. Tabitha, do you have that slide? It shows his picture. The civilians have spent months, years really, but months now aiding and abetting Hamas. I mean, we saw the very civilians that overwhelmingly voted in Hamas with their charter to genocide every last Jew. We saw them douse the Jewish babies with kerosene and hand the lighter to their little children to give them the proper chinuch, the proper hands-on education of what to do to the Jews. That's the civilians that we're talking about. But it doesn't matter. The facts don't make one bit of difference. I mean, the European Union's High Representative Joseph Borrell, he still said that the operation was, quote, yet another civilian massacre. But I'll tell you, as time goes on, I'm seeing that the people of Israel are starting to just care less and less about the ridiculous, hypocritical, moral blindness being demonstrated by so much of the world and their slanderous accusations against Israel, which is good. And it's a healthy development and it's a healthy response, which brings me to this recurring thought that I've been having more and more throughout this war. And it's been returning to me powerfully again and again. And the theme of this thought revolves around this unique light that can emerge from war in general and from this war in specific. Now, the prototype of this light that I'm talking about, which best exemplifies this idea, is Abraham and his 10 tests. And I know we've been speaking about this recently, but it's important because these are times of tests. We're each going through tests, and we need to be conscious of this and aware of this. And what were these tests for? Who were these tests for? Growing up, I used to think that God was testing Abraham for God to decide if Abraham would be chosen to be Abraham, if he would be the chosen one, the father of the great faiths who would bring the knowledge of one God to the world. But as we've spoken about before, the truth is that Hashem already knew Abraham's heart, and he knew that he'd pass these tests. But who didn't yet know Abraham's heart? Abraham. Abraham didn't know Abraham's heart. These tests actually showed Abraham. They allowed Abraham to actualize that dormant, latent potential, within himself, and to actually become the best ultimate version of Abraham that he could be. I think it was the best version of Abraham. If it wasn't the best version, I can only imagine. We don't really know. But, I've been thinking about that throughout this war, at those precious moments like we just had, where I see sparks of this beautiful goodness and light that is emerging from such evil and darkness. But this idea hit me particularly hard when I was looking into the eyes of the fallen hero of Israel, Arnon Zamora. You don't need to know anything about what kind of man. He was the first one to break into the home in which the hostages were being held. Break in the first one. He's a hero. But you don't need to know about the details of his life. You can just see who he was in his eyes. Look in his eyes. You can just see the goodness and the sweetness. And by the way, I've been plagued by this feeling that I knew him. Jeremy, I don't know if you felt this also. I just felt like I knew him, and I reached out to Yossi, and he confirmed that that indeed Arnon Zamora was at our farm on at least one occasion, which doesn't surprise me, as we very often had the privilege of opening our farm and our Oasis pool and our facilities to the IDF in general and special forces in particular. But anyways, you could just look in his eyes. You look at his face. You see the goodness and the kindness and the compassion. And as I've been reading about who he was as a husband and a father, it just confirms what you see on his face. Here's a post from his wife. She says here, everything is filling up with pictures of the hero, Arnon Zamora. But long before he was a warrior and a hero, he was a wonderful and a sweet man, a spectacular husband and a wonderful father, a man that loved and was loved. And that's how we will remember him. And we'd be happy for you to remember him that way as well. This is a picture of his children now without their father. It's just heartbreaking. There always has to be, it feels like there has to be that one sacrifice. It reminds me of the Entebbe rescue, in which Benjamin Netanyahu's brother was killed. He was the one hero that was killed. He led the raid on Entebbe, and he was killed there. And by the way, I just saw this beautiful exchange between Arnon Zamora himself and one of the heroes on the Entebbe mission, asking him guidance and advice. Little did he know that he would soon be the hero there. But the point I'm trying to make is that without these vicious, genocidal, jihadist, death cult terrorists, Arnon himself would have never known that in addition to his gentle, kind, compassionate nature, who he was just, in the path of least resistance, just naturally, he also had within him, quote, bravery on the level of Judah Maccabee. And those aren't my words. Those are the words of the Israel's Shin Bet Secret Service, who aren't exactly known for their gushing sentimentality. As they described how the rescue took place under heavy fire, hundreds of terrorists converged through the alleys upon the IDF while shooting heavy machine guns, RPGs, at the soldiers and the hostages. You have to understand that Arnon was already a legend before this happened for his heroism on October 7th, when he and his fellow soldiers were caught by surprise at the Yad Mordechai Junction. Jeremy, did you hear about this whole thing? They fought like lions in the Yad Mordechai Junction. They were extremely outnumbered and outgunned, and they fought their way to Sderot, and from Sderot to Ofakim, and from Ofakim to Be'eri. And in each place, they were at the forefront, on the front lines of the fighting. I mean, there's story after story after story. We don't have time for them all here, but someone's got to have to make a documentary, a video, a film, something about this man and his heroism. But without Hamas, Arnon himself would have never known about his own courage and his strength and his self-sacrifice and his battlefield prowess, and neither would any of his soldiers. And so without our enemies bent on our destruction, the nation of Israel, we as a nation, we would simply never know that in addition to being a kind and compassionate, peace-loving, humanity-loving people, we are also a nation of warriors that are not only willing to fight, but eager to fight with faith and with courage and with self-sacrifice for our land and for our God and for our families and really for the world, for the sake of goodness and for the sake of life. So I would often reflect why in our morning prayers, every morning, we say, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Ozer Yisrael b'Gevurah, who helps Israel with Gevurah. Now, what's Gevurah? For those of you who didn't hear Jeremy's whole thing, it's strength, it's discipline, it's the ability to draw the line, and just to say, no, it stops here. It's the opposite side of the spectrum from chesed, right, which is loving kindness. And notice there's no blessing anywhere thanking Hashem for helping us with our loving kindness, because we don't need help with that. That's our nature. That is well within our comfort zone. And so the real service of Hashem, the real growth happens outside our comfort zone. And for the nation of Israel, that is the attribute of Gevurah, of putting on an IDF uniform and going to war, because our natural predisposition is not hate and war, it's love and peace. But our enemies have helped us reveal to ourselves that if need be, we can fight and we will fight. And with Hashem's help and blessing, we will fight like ferocious lions with the strength and power that the world has never seen. And I believe that Hashem sent us signs throughout this special Shabbat that he is with us, reminding us that all that's going on is exactly according to divine plan, that everything is happening exactly as it should. And it's a funny thing, because during the Torah portion, during the reading this Shabbat, which took place, it takes place between 10:15, 10:30, 11 a.m. That's exactly the time the rescue mission was launched. And during that Torah reading at that time, we encounter this verse. V'dashnu et hamizbeach u'parsu alav beged argaman. Tabitha, if you could show the slide there. It's from chapter 4 of Numbers, verse 13. And they shall take away the ashes from the altar and spread a purple cloth on it. The word is purple, but it's not a good translation for the word argaman. And that's the reason this verse stood out. I couldn't figure out at the time why it stood out, but it really did to me. And of course, you could, hear the word in this verse, argaman. That's the word for a royal purple color that was used for so many things in the tabernacle and the temple. That's the word argaman. And it's also the name, as I'm sure you've realized by now, of possibly the most famous of the 4 hostages that were released, a young girl whose horrific abduction was broadcast throughout Israel. We've all seen it. It's burned into our consciousness. She was one of those who, she represented in some way all the kidnapped innocents. Here's a picture of a sign that soldiers made inside one of their positions in Gaza. It says, Noah Argamani, we are on our way to get you. We're on our way to get you. And again, the portion of the Torah with her name was read at the very time the rescue mission was being launched. This was actually pointed out by my friend Chaya Kaplan Lester, who also mentioned that the word Argaman represents the chief angels of the God of Israel that we encounter actually in the Bible. Argaman, each letter of the word Argaman is one of those angels. Uriel, Raphael, Gavriel, Michael, and Nuriel, meaning to me that even the chief angels of Hashem on the highest celestial realms were battling with us to rescue our beloved hostages. Ultimately, we have to remember that everything is in Hashem's hands. And while our enemies seek to terrorize us and destroy us, it's through their very hands, with God's help, that the ferocious lions of Judah within us are being awoken and unleashed, and they're bringing about the very redemption of Hashem that they are seeking to prevent. And so I'll share Chaya's blessing from the powerfully prophetic verse in the Torah portion foretelling the rescue of Noah Argamani. And with that blessing, I bless us all, that we should all merit to truly remove the ashes of destruction from the altar of the sacrifice of this war and spread out in its place the beauty of Argaman. That's my blessing to you and to all of us. May we all merit to see salvations and redemptions very soon, my friends. Sending you so much love and blessing. Back to you, Jeremy.